post-application for residual control that lasts up to 2 weeks longer than many competitive products. Or add Outlook herbicide, which activates with as little as a quarter inch of rainfall. BASF. We create chemistry. Always read and follow label directions.
Hey, this is Todd Gleason from Illinois Extension here with a time change for our daily market report on WHOW. You can now catch our daily review of the commodity markets at 5:06 on all of WHOW's many platforms. You'll still hear all of our commodity analysts and weather professionals each afternoon, but at a brand new time. And you'll still hear the weekly wrap-up of the commodity markets right here on WHOW when Commodity Week airs Saturdays at 8:30 a.m. Remember the time change for the daily closing market report on WHOW at our new time, 5:06 p.m. weekdays.
You're listening to The Morning Show on the Big 1520 across Central Illinois. WHOW.
Top of the morning. Thanks for being with us. I'm your host today, Seth Lawrence, and my guest on the phone is Jim Bohannon of The Jim Bohannon Show. It's heard here weeknights from 9 to midnight. Jim, welcome. Happy New Year, my friend. How are you today?
Doing fine. Happy New Year.
Thank you for taking time with us as always. It's good to have you. And Jim, I know you've been back behind the mic for about a week or so. And let's just take this opportunity, Jim, and look back at the year that was 2021, a wild year. Of course, the new year kicked off with the January 6th insurrection. We had Joe Biden sworn in as the 46th president. We had just so much happen after that. Afghanistan, coronavirus continued. Let's just kind of get your perspective on the year that was 2021.
I think the most remarkable thing about the new year is the extent to which it seems to be inexplicably mirroring the previous year. Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer are now talking about trying to bring back their monstrous spending plan, the so-called Build Back Better plan, even though West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin, who holds the deciding vote, has made it clear there are no talks underway and there's nothing there to talk about. And it's rather interesting that we seem to be stuck in that time warp. At the same time that we're also stuck in this time warp from last year of getting rid of the filibuster, which again, in a closely divided Senate, Senator Manchin says he's not prepared to do. So it's as if somehow the Nancy Pelosi's and Chuck Schumer's of the world has not been listening. I mean, Manchin has been very clear in this regard that no, those are not items he's prepared to vote for. He's not going to vote to kill the filibuster, which, by the way, Chuck Schumer was adamant about merely 17 years ago in 2005 when the shoe was on the other foot, and he talked about Republicans trying to make this into a third world two-bit dictatorship, and now, of course, the shoe's on the other foot, why he's going all out to try and get rid of the filibuster. But then again, intellectual consistency has never been a problem with Chuck Schumer. He goes with whichever way the wind happens to blow. You can hear some of his remarks online about the fact that people in this country illegally should be called illegal aliens, and how quickly that changed too in just a few short years. So basically the Democrats seem to think that somehow they can pick up where they left off, and no, that part of their agenda, the Build Back Better plan and killing the filibuster, are dead. D-E-A-D, dead. Capital D, capital E, capital A, capital D, dead. I don't know how much more clear it has to be made.
Mm-hmm. Well, Jim, it was just a few days ago we kind of look back at the incident of January 6th. And, I'm kind of curious where you stand on this. There's a lot of people out there that, they don't like it being called an insurrection. Other people say that democracy was in peril on that day. What say you with, based on what we know about January 6th?
Well, Senator Amy Klobuchar of Minnesota has, of course, referred to people involved as insurrectionists, although technically no one has been charged with insurrection. So as a matter of nitpicking grammar and definitions, that would be incorrect. It was a lame-brained move. The last thing that people like Adam Schiff and others on the left needed was more ammunition, which some lame-brained idiots decided to hand to them on a silver platter. This whole notion of storming the Capitol is one of the dumbest things that has ever taken place in this country. And the people involved are I mean, you might as well just sign up to be part of AOC's posse. I mean, that's what those people did. It was dumb, dumb, dumb from day one. It should be noted, of course, that Donald Trump, in his remarks, which were his usual rambling and undisciplined remarks, did at one point, and by the way, only one point, but at one point he did refer to going up to the Capitol and peacefully demonstrating. He did say that, so I suppose that excuses him from some culpability in all that took place. Certainly he waited for hours and hours to issue a statement calling people off, because he, for some reason, seemed to wallow in the idiocy of the moment. But then again, that's also Donald Trump. It should also be noted that the trouble on Capitol Hill began before Donald Trump's rally had even concluded, and that rally was well south of Capitol Hill. I have walked the length of the mall in Washington from the Lincoln Memorial all the way to the Capitol. That's a long hike, a long hike. I guarantee you, the people listening to the Trump speech took an hour or more to get to Capitol Hill.
Mm-hmm.
So these were not the people who were there at the very beginning of all of this. So it is, and of course, it has been turned into a diatribe against Donald Trump, and by extension and implication, everyone who ever supported Donald Trump, which is certainly not true. I mean, you had people like Laura Ingraham and Sean Hannity emailing Mark Meadows, the White House chief of staff, that the president's got to stop this before his legacy is torn to pieces. So it's being turned into something that it should not have been considered. But again, that doesn't alter the fact that the people who broke into the Capitol were a pack of idiots,
Mm-hmm.
and also people who broke the law, and they should be punished.
Mm-hmm. Jim, of course, a few weeks later, Joe Biden was sworn in as the next president of the United States. And again, Jim Bohannon of the Jim Bohannon Show, our guest here on the phone. You can hear him weeknights from 9 to midnight right here on WHOW. Jim, like I said, Joe Biden sworn in what was kind of a very theatrical, as is most of those events, inauguration. But just how about Joe Biden's presidency, the first year of it, as we look back?
I don't know that we can look at a presidency in our lifetimes. I do include the Jimmy Carter presidency for those old enough. I don't think we can find a presidency whose first term has been as much of a disaster. I mean, the left and the right are in agreement on Joe Biden for different reasons, to be sure. The right doesn't like what Biden has been trying to do to turn this country into some socialist paradise, quote unquote, whereas the left notes how utterly inept he has been at trying to do so. But nobody likes this man. His disapproval ratings are skyrocketing. His approval ratings are sinking right through the floor. It's been a dismal year. The man has shown definite signs of cognitive disability. I know them too well. My mother died of dementia, and while Biden is not drooling, obviously, and not losing it on every occasion, but at some times and some days he is. And that's all the stuff we've seen publicly. We don't know what's happened in, say, the Oval Office, for example, but these are the classic symptoms of early onset dementia. Although in Biden's case, of course, it's not that early, the onset. He's a problem. He's inept. He's inaccurate. He's showing nothing in the way of leadership. He started off with an inaugural address promising unity and healing, and promptly proceeded to govern in a way designed to prevent any unity or healing. It's just remarkable. I mean, if I had orchestrated, and I'm no backer of President Biden, if I had orchestrated his administration to make it fail, I couldn't have done a better job than the people who presumably are working for him and have his best interests at heart. I'm really astounded. I mean, it's far worse than I ever imagined.
Jim, one of the things that and still stands out to me is the Afghanistan debacle, and it feels like that has really kind of fallen by the wayside in the memory of 2021. I mean, with COVID at the end of the year, inflation and supply chain issues and all these economic things that really kind of took over once Afghanistan was concluded, or the lack thereof. It felt like that has really, like I said, kind of fallen by the wayside in the mirror and the memory of 2021. But how about the Afghanistan issue and where we stand with that even now?
No question about the fact so many things have gone wrong in the interim that we have tended to lose sight of it, although I trust that Republican candidates running this year will remind us. But it was one of the most shameful moments in the history of this country, in which we abandoned not only American citizens, but thousands of Afghans who had worked for us and whom we owed a great deal. They'd put their lives and the lives of their families on the line. We totally abandoned them. We left security at the Kabul, Afghanistan airport in the hands of the Taliban. So a suicide bomber gets through and kills a bunch of U.S. troops and others. And we should be surprised. I mean, it's just remarkable. Again, I'm not sure how the Biden administration could have planned to make this country and themselves look any worse than the way in which they handled that. It's truly remarkable, as if the lessons of 1938 and Munich, Germany, and Neville Chamberlain that led directly to World War II somehow were forgotten.
Mm-hmm. Were there any successful moments of 2021 for Joe Biden?
I'd have to think about it. Nothing jumps right out at me, quite honestly. I suppose there might have been a few. I guess again, I'd have to really apply some deep thought to that. It wasn't very plentiful. Depending, of course, on what they were trying to do. I assume they weren't trying to hurt the administration, the Biden legacy, or the country. And so in that regard, it's hard to think of anything.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, of course, you mentioned the approval ratings of Joe Biden can continue to, it feels like, continue to drop at least. I don't know the latest polling or anything of that nature, but Jim, inflation, I mean, that really is setting in on people's, everyday lives here as we, finished up 2021, but now we enter 22, and it doesn't feel like there's a whole lot of reprieve on the horizon.
No, certainly the Omicron variant, as proven as it initially appeared to be not as deadly, but far more contagious than the previous variants, and that's not a good sign. I think we're going to reach the point where eventually we wind up with this every year. And let's not forget about the fact that thousands of people die every year from the flu. We just take this for granted, the flu, like it's been around forever. No, it hasn't. The flu, to which we refer, goes directly back a little over a century to the great pandemic of 1918, and it's been with us ever since. Only now we just come to accept it. Oh, it's time for the flu shot. And we have to get new shots because the flu, like viruses do, adapts readily, and strains that are not subject to the killing power of previous vaccines come out, and we have to develop new vaccines for them. So I think that not only will it tend to be treated in the same way as the flu, but it'll probably be in the same shot. I mean, it'll just be part of the package. The fact is we live in a dangerous world, and part of that danger is viruses which attack human beings. So I think that the idea of getting rid of COVID, I think, is ridiculous any more than we're going to get rid of the pandemic of 1918.
Mm-hmm.
There's no indications we're going to get rid of either one.
Well, and but when do we go back to normal?
That we learn to live with the fact as well that we kill 30,000 people every year in car accidents. We don't seem to get all panicky about that. It's just part of the price of driving a car.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, when do we kind of accept the risk that is COVID, and when do we go back to normal?
Well, that's a good question, and again, I'm not sure that we have a handle on that. But certainly, you do the best you can. It would help if we had consistent messaging from the Centers for Disease Control, which has been probably the worst way in this whole thing has been handled. The speed with which the vaccines were developed under Operation Warp Speed has been remarkable, and one of the great milestones of modern medical science. And the like, but the messaging from the Centers for Disease Control, they need to learn that until you know what it is we need to do, shut up. Quit confusing people. You're destroying your own credibility, so that when you do come out with something, additional to say, people don't believe you.
Mhm.
And this is lost on the people at the CDC for some reason.
That's probably one of the biggest, drawbacks of the pandemic, Jim, has been just the loss of faith in institutions like the CDC or the World Health Organization because of just back and forth messaging, confusing messaging, counterproductive messaging at times.
Yes, absolutely. And they have not been able to somehow comprehend what they've been doing, not just to us, but to themselves.
Mhm. Jim, let's take a break. Jim Bohannon of the Jim Bohannon Show, our guest on the phone. We've got a lot more with him coming up on the WHOW Morning Show.
Let's check the opening numbers now at the Chicago Board of Trade on this Monday. I'm Jim Taylor for the RFD Radio Network. Corn, beans, and wheat all starting the day lower. March corn opening 603 1/4, down 3.5. May corn down 3.5, 604 1/4. And December corn 555 1/2, down 2 1/4. January beans starting the day 1395, down 6.5. March beans down 5 3/4, 1404 1/2. November beans 1311. Down 10 3/4. March wheat 753, down 5.5. May wheat down 5 3/4. 754 3/4. July wheat opening 751 1/4, down 5 3/4. January bean meal 433.50, up 13.10. March bean meal 426.20, up 120. January bean oil down 15 cents. 58.63. Look at the opening numbers for this Monday. Jim Taylor, RFD Radio Network.
At Baum Chevrolet Buick in Clinton and Baum Motor Company in Farmer City, our job is to help you and solve your transportation needs. This is Scott Baum. Both in Clinton or Farmer City, we'll listen and find options for a different vehicle. Or we'll give you repair options to keep that car, truck, or SUV safe and trouble-free so you can continue with your busy schedule. If it has to do with transportation, we're here to help. Visit our full-service team today in Clinton or Farmer City. Baum Chevrolet Buick, right from the start.
Clinton Save-A-Lot owner Dave Jackson here with a supply chain update. While we're working as best we can to keep our shelves stocked with the items you need and want every day, we're experiencing never-before-seen interruptions in product availability and delivery, both through Save-A-Lot and our direct suppliers. In most cases, they can't run their production lines due to the lack of workers, plus a shortage of truck drivers. Despite all that, we're working to keep the meat, produce, and other products you buy in stock and on our shelves every day. Your Clinton Save-A-Lot appreciates your business, and we hope to see you soon.
This is the morning show on 92.3 FM in DeWitt County, WHOW.
Once again, a good morning. Thanks for being with us. I'm your host today, Seth Lawrence. My guest on the phone, Jim Bohannon of the Jim Bohannon Show. Heard weeknights, 9 to midnight. And Jim, as we talk here today, let's look ahead to 2022. And I don't know in terms of legislation and other things at a national level, what we could be in store for. I know that midterms are going to start to become a huge topic, especially as we get into the spring and the summer. But in the meantime, we've mentioned the filibuster. Doing away with that appears to be null and void, as is the Build Back Better initiative and budget that the Biden administration has promoted for a year now. But again, just kind of legislatively, anything that you foresee lawmakers taking up between now and November?
Well, increasingly, election years have become periods of time when both major political parties, increasingly as the years progress, they decide that they would rather have an issue to beat their opponents over the head with rather than a solution. So it's not a good time for legislation of any kind to be passed. Instead, the two parties are storing up ammunition for the fall elections and, of course, the primary elections.
Mm-hmm.
And in that regard, of course, it's a big election year. Every member of the House, all 435 members, 34 senators, 20 Republican seats, 14 seats currently held by Democrats. Most of the governorships are up this year, and a host of other races, legislative and local and like. So it's a big year. The only thing it lacks really is the presidency.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is very big. there seems to be no way at this juncture that the Democrats keep the House. So they're going to lose at least one seat of Congress, maybe by 50 or 60 votes, which would be a true landslide as opposed to the kind of landslide that Donald Trump talks about, which is to say not really a landslide. This could be a landslide. The Senate, which I thought earlier evenly divided currently, with a tiebreaker, of course, from the vice president, that I think probably will go 3 or 4 seats to the Republicans. So the domestic agenda for Joe Biden is effectively over. They'll try to get a few things through this year, but they're not, I don't think, going to succeed. And essentially after that, Biden with his veto will try to hang on to whatever he can and keep the new Republican Congress from overriding him with the votes that come up. But the domestic agenda for Joe Biden has come to a conclusion, I think.
Jim, I was thinking about this as you were talking there. It feels like the Supreme Court is really, been front and center for so many things in the not just 2021, but now they'll theoretically take up several important things coming in 2022, most notably these mandates of vaccination that Joe Biden has put out there, and the legality and the authority that he perhaps has.
Well, there are serious questions of whether or not the president even has whether or not the president even has that authority. I don't think constitutionally he does. That's number one. And number two, the Supreme Court will be very busy on the front as regards the vaccine mandates. Their questioning during the arguments indicates that they will probably vote against those mandates. They will also finally issue something definitive, I suppose, on abortion. Whether they overturn Roe v. Wade or similar rulings remains to be seen. But the Supreme Court will be very big in the forthcoming year. You're quite correct.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where they land on some of these things. Jim, forgive me. I've run us out of time. I apologize for that. I've got about 40 seconds here with you this morning. What's on your show this week? What do you have coming up?
Well, coming up this week, we're going to be talking a great deal with the look at the economy. Economist Dr. Peter Marisi will be joining us tonight in the 9 p.m. hour, and we'll be talking about some of the economic issues, the Federal Reserve Board, where they may be going, inflation, just how do we get it under control and when, and, of course, the national debt, which keeps rocketing toward $30 trillion. So that'll be part of what's coming up this week.
Jim Bohannon Show, weeknights, 9 to midnight, right here on WHOW. Jim, thank you as always. Network News is next.